You should be seeing Fergal Ringrose today. Unfortunately, he can't be with us. He passes on his apologies. We're going to carry on the conversation now, but we're going to bring in a broadcaster and two broadcast service providers. With me, we have Alessandro Reitano, who's the Director of Sports Production at Sky Deutschland. He's also the Chairman of the SVG Europe Advisory Board. We also have Brian Clark, who's Director of Sales at NEP Major Events, and Timo Koch, who's the Director of Operations at Euro Media Group. Welcome to you all. Alessandro, I'd like to come to you first, if I may. Very broadly, how's the last few weeks been? But more specifically, what have you been able to do to keep sport on the air during the lockdown?
Thank you, Will. Thanks for having me. Hello, everyone. I hope you're all well out there. And by the way, thanks for organizing this virtual meeting. Very interesting so far. It is a crazy journey so far, especially for a broadcaster, which, let's say, have no live sports anymore on program. So for us, as you all know, live sports paused. So we worked hard to create a fresh and an attractive program for our customer, nevertheless. Especially, and this was really interesting to see on our Sky Sport News channel, which is a free-to-air channel. We embraced the task to provide news around COVID-19 on top of our live sports. It becomes a more, let's say, a generic news channel in a very short period of time. And we try to create fresh program behind pay TV, or let's say for our pay TV customers. But let's say to achieve all that, it was really, really important that we deployed a safe house strategy, either for the newsroom, but also for the broadcasting center channel in a very short period of time. I mean, we heard a lot about safety first for our people and everything. And let's say this was a mental thing. Also, let's say how people embrace change, how people, let's say, are dealing with the circumstances which comes along. Obviously, we send the people home from, let's say, they're working from 90% of our people working from home. But therefore, you need some really clear technical guidance in place, but also, let's say, how we working, how we introduced a new way of working was really important. And it's not stops, because at the end of the day, you solve the problem of having everyone safe and producing content. On the other hand, you're thinking about the restart scenario, which is much more complex to play. I mean, you can close doors, but to open the door again, it's far more complex because you let more people in. And these are the difficulties where we brought in place a really clear technical disaster recovery concept in place, which was able then to introduce new way of working. And with all the technology which in place, we embraced everything. So we brought us in a very good position to, let's say, produce fresh content, but also, let's say, keeping people definitely safe and having a clear and a good strategy for our customers, which are paying still the subscription, which was very important for that. Yeah.
Thank you. You mentioned the restart, and we'll come back to that in a moment. But I'd like to bring in Brian. Before I do, if anybody has questions, by the way, there is a Q&A button on the Zoom screen. Feel free to click on it and ask any questions to our panelists. I'll ask those at the end. Brian, as we saw in Lorenzo's presentation at the beginning, we've had no sporting events since the middle of March. How's this affected the NEP group, and have you been able to help any of your customers produce anything in the last few weeks?
Well, firstly, thanks for having me. First opportunity to wear a shirt in about 5 weeks.
I've done my hair.
We're very fortunate. We've got 3 different workflows. We've got our live events, our broadcast side, our live events, and our media services. And what we've seen is that the live sports have obviously been hit pretty hard across the board and across the geographies. We've seen this early on. We're geographically placed in Asia, etc. So we've seen this sweeping across the world as the sports were stepping out. So now we're more in a position to try and help them with what I would call non-live content. So we're doing a lot, for instance, with a company, DAZN, who have been hit in terms of their live rights, etc., but they're putting out other content. We're still supporting that in the virtual platform that we help them with and support. So that's going on. So that's positive. We're fortunate again that we're kind of quite well diversified in terms of coverage. It's not just live sport. And what we're seeing is technologies that we had in the live sports area, we are taking over. So you could call it the world's oldest live sport, which is the UK Parliament. MPs behave worse than football fans, but they've had to move from a traditional environment to a virtual environment, and we've moved them over. We're moving over the House of Lords as well. So it's and that isn't just put MPs on Zoom. That does not work. So you have to control that. You have to, put technologies that we've actually had and we've learned from other parts of the division, such as CT, and we've transitioned them across this. It's accelerating different workflows in different ways. Haven't quite seen marbles racing down. I've seen the thing on LinkedIn, but we're not involved with that one. But there's weird and wonderful sports that people are prepared to, sit down and watch just now. And I think that's one of the keys to this is, deploying the tools to go and do it. Virtualized kit, virtualized edits, remote commentaries that are designed to work in people's houses, to add different commentaries to older material. We're doing a lot of that. And, it's a challenge, but we're also supporting a lot of news. We've got strong relationships with news organisations, so we're doing a lot of that as well.
Good. Timo, a very similar question to you, if I may. How have the Euromedia Group companies been coping during this period? What have you been able to do? Have you been able to help sports broadcasters in any way?
Well, I certainly hope so. I will. You may. The question. Yes. Well, sports OBs may be our core business. Fortunately, we have a few. We are diversified over a few segments. Anyway, since the most of the live sports have been postponed or cancelled, it did. You could call it give us the opportunity or force us, whatever way you want to look at it. It did give us the opportunity to start developing some new workflows. Mm-hmm. So mainly not coming from the sports events as such, but I think we are actually exploring all kinds of different stages of remote productions, of which some stages that we probably never thought about before. The whole situation basically forced us to rethink the workflow, and as they say, sometimes great ideas emerge under pressure. Mm. And some of these experiments they turn out to work really well, and I think they are almost ready to be implemented in some kind of a live sports setting as soon as the live sport picks up again. Mm. We have seen creating some very creative alternatives. For example, just one or two examples. Easter Sunday is in Belgium traditionally the day of probably the most famous cycling tour, the Tour of Flanders, which did not happen, obviously. This year, for the first time, there was a virtual Tour of Flanders, where 13 of the top athletes rode the last 30 kilometers literally on their home trainers at home. Put a camera in their home. It gave the viewers an insight on their home training environment. The whole thing was broadcasted where the position of the riders, cyclists, was graphically displayed on TV, and that combined with the real commentators, both on TV and on radio, made it sometimes look almost real. Mm. Obviously, nothing compared to the real race, but a nice alternative to the cancelled race. We are doing a series on the cancelled world-renowned techno festival Tomorrowland, where DJs from all over the world are doing their set from home. where the images are enhanced by selfie pictures from viewers, chats from viewers. I mean, you just see a lot of very creative elements come out of nothing, literally. Probably things that you would never have seen in a normal life.
Mm. Every cloud does have its silver lining. I think that's what you're saying. There are benefits and pluses to some of this negativity, which is great to hear.
Yeah.
And talking positivity, at some point we are expecting to restart certain leagues. So, Alessandro, the restart of the Bundesliga, for example, stands out as a potential major talking point. I mean, it's fair to say the whole of Europe will be watching what happens with the Bundesliga. To the best of your knowledge, what's the latest on when matches might restart? But more importantly, when they do, how will they be covered by television?
Yeah, good question. And believe me, I would have been very happy to announce the breaking news today in this virtual meeting that Bundesliga starts next week. But there was a big meeting today with federal states and ministers regarding the topic. And unfortunately, they cannot say exactly when the restart starts. They postponed it to next week. So we're hanging there somehow. We are prepared ourselves very good to get the restart as best as possible. I mean, nevertheless, we are in good talks with Bundesliga and the affiliates with Sportcast, who's doing the host broadcasting. I mean, at the end of the day, and this is, I mean, we will start first in Europe with a league somehow, and we all will face the same issue: safety first, which is absolutely the most important thing. And so you have to guarantee an acceptable medical risk, let's say, before you start. And that means less people, obviously, different zones. And this is something we talk to Bundesliga at the moment, how we make sure, first of all, that our people on site are safe. And we can not only have the 19 minutes match ready, because this is the obvious part, what you always expect. But from a Bundesliga perspective or for other league perspective, this is first. Core elemental is 90 minutes. And as a broadcaster, obviously, you want to have the big bang, because at the end of the day, we were all very long without any live sports. So you're expecting more than 90 minutes and asking on top of it and saying, okay, what can we do better? That's in our DNA, which is we're challenging all the time, which is good. But you would expect that as a broadcaster, and this is where we have to find compromises with leagues, but also with OB-band providers, because we have to accept that an OB-band has a minimum requirement of space. And if you normally bring 20 people on site for a unilateral, we have to place the people, because if you bring more cars you need more space. You have the risk is higher for the people. So at the end of the day, it comes to the point, okay, what is the minimum requirements you can achieve on site? That's commentary, that's interviews. With this, let's say, first phase, you have to accept, and then you have to start, okay, what you can be on top, or what can you do on top out of your broadcasting center via remote access, via remote implementation of augmented reality. What is your sound concept on everything? Do you want to have really empty stadiums behind closed doors? I mean, it's 90 minutes. It can be boring. It can be authentic, but it can be boring. Yeah. And this is something you have to discuss as a broadcaster together with the league. What is your best possible case you come back as a restart, and how the product can look like? And this is what we are discussing every day with the Bundesliga. We are first, and we have to make sure people are safe, 90 minutes, but on top of it, a meaningful experience for our customers as well. And in between, we will find compromises in phase one, and then we will, let's say, definitely making sure that phase two is much more better than phase one.
Thank you very much. You've touched on the potential changes to the trucks and the compound, and it's a fascinating question. It's a very simple question. I'll ask Brian first, but it's also almost impossible to answer. But what will the broadcast compound look like and the trucks look like when things restart? And will there be long-term implications of what happens in the next few weeks?
I think in the previous panel they touched on, when the virus would be defeated, if you want to use a better word. That's hard to tell. I'd like to hope that there is a lot of light at the end of the tunnel. We are seeing positives across the world. So let's hope that is the case. If it is, you've got an interim stage where you've got to look after the health and safety of the crew is absolutely paramount. So we're working with lots of different agencies and companies to actually, get a set of guidelines. But every country is different as well, so it's quite complicated. Wear a mask in the UK, don't wear a mask in Scotland. Wear a mask in Singapore, don't wear a mask in the US. It's very complicated. But what we are doing is we're trying to get a good basis, bringing in experts to help us guide. Our company in Germany, just as an example, have been working with the German government to actually go through what they think. So to try to take lessons from that and trying to pass that on to the rest of the group. We've got a COVID-19 steering committee that's taking in all that information from various places. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to take all the good ideas, but the compound will change. So what could it look like? Well, Alessandro's spot on, social distancing inside a truck, incredibly difficult in the UK to do 2.5 metres. So how do you come up with plans to move people off-site? Someone coined the phrase, and I quite liked it. It was the diversification in an outside broadcast truck. So what operators can operate from home or a specific location where you can do 2.5, feed back into the truck. We've been doing a similar, what do they call, Grannies, which is graphics and EVS remotes in the US for a good number of years. And it's a model that works. That's come down to connectivity. So you've got to be careful about that. But again, harking back to Timo, this environment that we're in has pushed creativity. So some things that we thought might not be acceptable are becoming more acceptable because people know that, whereas one glitch would have been, oh my God, look at it, that's a slightly, is it more acceptable because you actually have to compromise for the production, but don't compromise too much. Number of trucks on site is a real issue because there's only a finite amount of trucks in Europe and across the world. So we can't just add physical spaces every time we go on site. And, you have an EVS room at a typical Premier League football match with upwards of 14 or 15 people in it. And that's just the EVS room. So imagine, social distance that lot at 2.5 metres, in between their cell phone calls and playing their EVSs. So it's a bit of a challenge, but we're working through it. We're working with the group and with other industry partners to come up with the plans. So it has to be sustainable. That's the one thing, sustainable. But live sports will bounce back. I would never underestimate the resilience of the human race and their love for sport. So, they're going to want it when we can actually get to the point where we can find out events and how to put them on safely.
Thank you. Timo, would you like to add anything to that? Do you see any major differences long term, perhaps, with how the compound will look or how your trucks might be laid out?
Well, how the compound will look today, we have a few examples where we're trying to reduce the number of people on the compound, obviously. So trying to find the right balance between the number of people on site without increasing the rigging time for too much, obviously. So there will certainly be a few lessons learned coming out of there. So you could say that maybe we find a few new workflows where we have less people on site. What we definitely believe is that this whole situation will accelerate the whole remote production.
Sure.
It's nothing new to remote production, but I am quite sure that many leagues, companies, producers who have been working out remote production, they will, in the actual situation, they will go to remote more quickly. Especially today, we're all hoping for certain competitions to start again, but we don't know if it will be possible. We don't know what the regulations will be at the time. There are some transitional phases where we thought that it would probably take X more time before it gets really fully adopted. and that will definitely accelerate.
Yep, that's fair enough. If the panel don't mind hanging on, we are over time, but I do have some questions from the audience. I'm going to spring these on you, so be prepared for personal insights into the people's lives. No, not really. Alessandro, one question which I think is very interesting from Kieran Seth was, can you virtualize the crowd and the atmosphere at a football match?
I mean, yes, from a technical perspective, obviously this is possible. The question is, do you want to need it, or is there a need for our customers? That's what I said before. I mean, I think we have to think about it as a broadcast, and also, let's say, don't underestimate the public perception on that, especially on the fan side. Everything is behind closed doors. So they want to come into, and they'd say they're feeling somehow maybe not necessary anymore. And so we have to be very careful about the discussion. We're preparing ourselves that we will create maybe a kind of an audio concept, but we have to make sure on when, let's say, is this a default option? Is it really pushed as an innovative part? So we're not sure yet. We're working on a concept, but we have to make sure really that it finds good balance in also in respect of the fans and everything. But yes, it is, as I said, everything is doable and thinkable, and we should think about everything, let's say, to make the behind closed doors definitely, or comeback games definitely more attractive as they were beforehand.
Yep.
It's the only authentic sound is nice, but it is. I'm watching my kids sometimes on the field, and look, it's a little bit more interesting than, let's say, no. But we have to make sure that it's really a good product.
Yeah, we've had canned laughter for many years. It's not that different. Brian or Timo, do you have an opinion on the virtualization of the sound? I mean, the sound particularly. I mean, a football match without noise is
both sides. One of the keys to this is can you make it interactive, or can you monetize it? Because it's pointless doing something that is not appealing to the fans, and it's pointless doing something that actually, in light of everything that's happened, this has been, it's stressing the whole industry in terms of the broadcasters, etc. They've not had the content to put out at the moment. So it has to be monetized, and it has to be interactive in some way that the fans engage with it. And if they don't engage with it, it's pointless doing it, because they know it's behind closed doors. So it has to have something that they engage with.
We've run out of time. I was going to ask one very, very, very quick question to Alessandro before we go again. It's a very obvious question, really, but reporters run to the field at the end of the game, they stick a microphone in the player's face, they ask him a question. Presumably that kind of thing can't happen with social distancing. That's a whole part of the post-match process, which is presumably going to be rethought.
Yeah, definitely. And this is, let's say, one of the major topics we're talking with Bundesliga at the moment, how the post-match scenarios can look like. And let's say where we are at the moment is, yes, if you divide that into different zones, and let's say assuming that the pitch level is zone 1 and lower stands are zone 2, and you find a way with 2 meters social distancing with all, let's say, the audio that, let's say, players can hear the question and can answer, let's say, immediately on it. Yes, it's definitely something which is then possible, and that's why we're working on it. That's we're proposing our, let's say, ideas to the Bundesliga, and let's say could be then, let's say, spread to other leagues and say, listen, this is the. I mean, we need a visual thing for the audience, which makes very clear we're keeping social distancing, and whatever you're doing, then it is a good part to make everyone clear. Yes, they stick to the plan. Before we're sending out someone to churches, this is the thing, what they're doing, and this is acceptable, and especially that's what we're working on very hard on it.
Thank you very much. There are many more questions we could ask, but we're being encouraged to wrap up. So can I just thank you all very much for your time today? It's been fascinating. On behalf of the audience, thank you for coming onto this call today.